close this. Let it keep doing what it's doing.
All right.
And
Sounds good.
I think we're running now.
All right.
And all right, good to see you, Randy.
Good to see you, Philip.
And it's not almost the fourth year of doing this. What you said, it's
It's
exactly
exactly the fourth year. Yes.
right, right. So there's some people that don't know you. So let's take a moment to talk about where you came from and how you got here.
Boy, where I came from,
My
how I
name
got
is
here.
Randy Benn.
That is a big, is that how I started? Okay. My name is David Randall Benn, actually. I go by Randy. Yes. I've had a somewhat circuitous path, but the fundamentals are grew up in the Northeast, and then was moved to Australia when I was 9. Was very much colored by that experience. I loved it. My family still lives there. Many of you know my brother Wes, who's been
Yeah.
based out of Sydney for quite a while. Went to Duke, studied political science and psychology.
Where's Duke?
Duke, it's somewhere in North Carolina. I forget.
Oh, North Carolina. Woo!
Yeah, wrong. No, that's the wrong brand, boy. That's the wrong blue. Stayed at Duke. Got a law degree, focusing in on environmental work. Came to DC, practiced law in some gigantic law firms. Took some time at the USCPA, which I loved, and was the head of the U.S. Water Program. Traveled extensively, spent a lot of time in Capitol Hill working with members of Congress. Back into big law, was a partner in some Manhattan firms. Did that all together for about 20 years. Started feeling the pull to do something different. They treated me really well, but I sort of felt like these are not my people. I don't know how else to say it. Not my tribe.
Yeah.
And so I started joining a bunch of nonprofit boards, and I started a rock and roll band, and I started coaching sports, playing a lot of sports, and found that was feeding my soul. So I shocked the firm, let go of my partnership at a very young age, hung out my own shingle, continued some law work and some lobbying work and some facilitation and some strategic planning. And at this point, I got up to somewhere like 7 nonprofit boards. I've now served on 12. And people were coming to me for leadership advice, which I was dispensing without any real credentials,
Right.
other than just raw experience. So I thought, maybe I should do something about that. So I took a year at Georgetown, at something called the Institute for Transformational Leadership, got certified as an executive coach, did the work and got a couple of bump ups in accreditation. So I'm now what they call a PCC, a professionally certified coach. And so these days, my work is almost a balance between the law, public policy, and strategic planning side, and then the coaching side. And I have a really broad mix of people that I work with, leaders at all different levels, all different types of industries, everything from law and med school deans to tech people to utility leaders. I have a really cool contract with Interior. I've now coached 12 superintendents of the National Park System, which I love. And life is good. Based here in DC, living looking out the window at the Potomac River. One of my roles is chairman of the board of the Potomac River Keeper Network. So working to protect and restore the nation's river on a 15,000 square mile watershed over 5 states, which keeps me quite busy. So life is full and life is good.
Life is full.
Yeah, I feel a lot of gratitude.
So we were doing private coaching probably back in the start of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on the coast of North Carolina restoring an old beach cottage. And after a couple of meetings, I think I said something along the lines of, Randy, I got 10 people talking to me about what I'm talking to you about. We should just go somewhere and do this. And pretty quickly, you came up with this metaphor of an unconference, all of the things that we would do different that normally are done. We're not going to go to a big hotel. We're not going to be locked indoors all week, etc. No PowerPoint. And so that's just, we get emails from people who've attended that just talk about the event in terms of it being restorative for them, how it's really impacted them on a economy level with regard to their career, but also on a personal level. And so, could you talk about the approach? You lay out the ground rules after dinner on Sunday night, going into the event, and could you talk about that approach a little bit? Why it's important to you? How
Sure.
it's different? How it's different? Yeah.
Well, it's different in a lot of essential ways. I mean, part of it is that I've used the metaphor of jazz, and you've liked that metaphor. It's
Yeah.
jazz, not classical. It's someone who still plays and sings in bands. Classical is wonderful, but it's very scripted, and it's whereas jazz, you go in the moment. It's about feeding off each other and the energy and communicating with people and
Right.
seeing where it
You
takes
might
you.
deviate from the sheet music a bit.
You
It's
will
okay.
deviate. You will
You
deviate.
will. Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that's special about this approach, the way we've been doing it, is that it's jazz, and by that I mean you're following the energy of the people in the room.
Yeah.
You're actively co-creating the experience, the agenda, if you will, live while we're
Yeah.
together. I mean, I tend to come wildly over-prepared, and then I wait and see what happens and what
Right.
lines people want to pursue.
Right.
So that plus the rustic environment and the beautiful food
Mm.
that curated through Chef Charles, and the
Yeah.
chance to go sit in the water and
Yeah.
get a little sun and share with each other, or sit over the fire, or pull out a guitar, it makes it very special and unusual.
Yeah.
And it's about as far away from Rubber Chicken and Hilton as you can get, and that was
Yeah.
definitely part of the objective, wasn't
Look, it's following along with the music metaphor. There is a set list. Like
it?
there is here's what we're going to play. But in the moment, if you feel the energy, and you did this one year, the first year I think, and you just threw me out because I was like, we have to check all these boxes, and you said, well, the energy is kind of interesting right now. Let's just take the afternoon off and let's come back before dinner. I think that was it.
Yeah.
And I kind of panicked, like, we can't do this. We have a checklist. We got to check all the boxes. And then people went down to the lake. They just kind of naturally like, let's go hang out at the lake. And then I heard conversations that were really important that people were having about it. Kind of went from a couple of technical, like, how are you doing this, to really like, how are you managing the situation? And how are you like working from home is a thing now. We got to do all these
Mhm.
things. And so having a set list, but knowing that you can follow the energy, that afternoon break, there's a lot of compression with those morning sessions. And then we have another session after lunch. But then that afternoon break, that 3 hours of reflect, respond, converse, it's not it's not wasted time. It's really, really important to the structure.
You know, it's not
And you
only
just
not
did that. You just surprised me when you did that.
well, and it was
But
fun
that's
surprising everybody, and it was great seeing the reaction, and it
yeah.
was a confirmation that we were in it together, that it was in this big
Hmm.
experiment, and we were going to play around with the norms, and we weren't bound by anything other than wanting to have a great experience, which is, I think, sort of the hallmark of the whole thing. Really, at least
Yeah.
that's what we're going for. We may fall short, but we're aiming very high in terms of that, and I just think that people are surprised in some ways when you go to the Hilton and it's fully scripted and it's session, 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 speaker, 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 speaker. You're being fed to such an extreme degree that sometimes you're almost just robotically walking from room to room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the open time when you're saying, okay, you got challenged this morning on this topic, and you shared and we talked, and now we want you to go out and think about what you heard, to maybe journal or talk to your friends or dig a little deeper, or to seek a colleague and see, well, what's been your experience in this area. Those things, those moments are can be really magical, and
Yeah.
the learning can be much deeper, I think, in that kind of environment and those kind of moments than you might get if you're just like getting handed another run sheet, like, okay, yeah, and you're just sort of ticking the
Right.
boxes.
Right. Right. And you have, and inside of that set list, I'll keep referring to musical
Yeah,
metaphor.
no, I like
There
that.
are there are guidelines that you implement and talk about because we're in a trusted space about
Yes.
what is it, something along the lines of what you learn can be shared. What's that idea? What's the
So the idea is that we're in it together and it's ours. And what's shared here stays here. What's learned here you can take out
Mm,
into the world in whatever way that works for you. And I think that's very important for the type of environment that we're creating. People share deeply. People share stuff that's close to their heart, and
yep, yep.
that's
Sometimes it
part.
spills over. It's
Sometimes
not
it
all,
does.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it does, and that's not something that we're afraid of. In fact, it's something we encourage.
Hmm.
And those of the folks that in your community that have been part of this, know this to be true, that they can tell the truth. And there's not a lot of places where people feel that they can unburden themselves and maybe let go of something that's difficult, put it out there, get some support and feedback from others. And so again, I think that's another element of what makes us unusual.
Yeah, the kind of sharing that happens in a room full of 2 dozen executives or 2 dozen leaders. There,
Hmm.
um, but I've seen you step away with someone during that open time and have a one-on-one,
Yeah.
and so I think that's just beautiful. Not everybody wants to share things about work-life balance in a group. I don't think it's easy to be vulnerable. And, we're all the smartest people in the room, kind of thing. We
Right.
just want to
Right. Right. That's
hold
right.
off a little bit.
Yeah.
So we do have. I have an aversion to worksheets,
Hmm.
um, but I do like to journal,
Yeah.
and you've been kind enough to kind of accommodate that workflow for this event. Um, I like journals because something there might not be a line on a spreadsheet or on a worksheet for me to write down some things. So the idea of we don't have workbooks, we don't have worksheets, but we have a journal, and everyone's expected to take their own notes and write down things that are relevant to them, and ask questions that they want to come back to. And you feel that there's pros and cons to this, maybe, or what's the?
Yeah. The first thing that I'm just going to share, the first thing that popped in my mind, which is that architects have such beautiful handwriting. And it's fun for me to walk around the table and see all these beautiful flowing scripts. I mean, I love your handwriting. I can think of certain people that have been to a couple. I can visualize their handwriting
The
and their journal stuff.
handwriting.
Yes. And so I love that. And it's a different type of communication, isn't it? So, we have been making a conscious effort from day one to not bring the PowerPoint and not bring the laptops and phone
Right,
notes,
right.
and to make it a different kind of an experience. And if anything, I probably overloaded people in the first couple of years with even too many worksheets. And so this year, Reed Thomas V4 um, is there's even a little bit of a different emphasis now than we've had in the past. There's some traditions that we're going to preserve.
Yeah.
Certainly spend some time in the first session or two, opening people up with some meditations and some internally focused, internal looking kinds of things, because the emphasis on the first couple of years has been how do you show up?
Right.
Because if you don't show up as a good version of yourself, all the other stuff's kind of irrelevant. You really can't influence others and be the leader that you want to be, the best leader that you can be. Um, so this year we're going to have more of an emphasis on um, some external focus stuff. So showing up as your best self is the precursor, and then what do you do with
Right.
that? So we're going to talk more about team building, about building trust, about mentoring, about saying no and dealing with burnout, about difficult conversations. Um, and so what we've been doing over time is transitioning from, lecturing modules to worksheets. And this year, we're going to spend a lot more time doing guided discussion
Hmm.
and digging into people's experiences, and hopefully we can get to a place where we can have that uh, sort of I don't want to say group think, because that doesn't mean that sounds like we're lining everyone up the same view, but a group reaction, a group response. So, Phils, what give me an example of your toughest employee situation that you've ever faced, and you share, and then the group responds, and you'll get 24 different perspectives on.
Everybody has their own story.
Right. How you then the group will help you shape, like let's say, well, you did that really well and this seemed to work for you, or this is what I tried that worked, this is what I tried that failed. And so we're gonna explore more of that approach, some group consideration of some of these tough issues. So there'll be some simple teeing up by me and you and others, and then there'll be maybe a case study, if you will, a storytelling, and then there'll be a group response, and then there'll be time for journaling and reflection. And we're going to work our way through the issues I just described, which partially came out of some polling that we did to see where people were. And I think that's really going to, take us into some new places. So I'm excited about it. Right?
It's jazz for you.
Jazz for me. We'll see what happens.
Look, it's and the way we organize this event, it's not like back to back, shoulder to shoulder, locked in a room. We go to breakfast, kind of, and then you're always surprised and delight because Charles is going to come out and get everybody's energy up, and he's excited. And then we step aside to the fireside room, and one, group of tables, everybody in a circle. We have a session at 9 a.m. So breakfast is at 9 a.m. And then we have drinks and snacks and coffee and tea off to the side. Usually take a little break after the first discussion. So at 10:30, we have another one until noon. After lunch, we have a third discussion. And then we have open time, like from 2:30 in the afternoon until probably 5:30. Dinner's at 6.
Right.
But then, when we're kind of figuring out the set list for this, I think I used the term, which I thought might resonate with you at the time, which was Vespers. This idea of having a bookend to the day. And last year, the weather wasn't so good. In the past years, we've done fireside, or we go down to the lake because sunset's around 7:30, and just kind of go around the group and talk about what we learned after we stopped learning for the day, so to speak. And why do you think there's a human artifact to that? Is it part of this kind of the storytelling narrative of kind of, the journey of that, but you come back to the end and you've learned something? I love having this evening wrap up.
So I do too. And I love that question, the way you framed it, because I spent a lot of the last year studying neurochemistry pretty deeply and talking to some real leaders in how the brain works and how we process information, and way too much to go into here, but giving yourself space to let things perk. How you wake up in the middle of the night thinking, "Oh, I wish I'd said that."
All the time, when you're not thinking, the non-thinking ideas are amazing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Einstein has a great quote about that, but he does his best thinking when he's doing nothing. The brain, we have this fast brain and the slow brain, which we've talked about, and you've sort of got the lizard brain, the brain stem, and that's the quick response of fright, fight, flight, or flee, or freeze for some people. And that's the place that reacts first. That's designed to keep you from, being eaten by tigers in the jungle, right? You've got to react quickly.
It's there for a reason, right?
It's there for a reason. It's evolutionary speaking, it's important. But if you can give yourself a few beats and get to the slow brain, the prefrontal cortex that synthesizes and thinks about more complex ideas, you got better answers. And so what we find is, you've gone through the effort of being in camera with people and sharing, and you're thinking, and then you wander off, and you may be sitting on the raft in the middle of the lake when you have your aha moment, right? And then it may be at the fire when you're totally relaxed and it's dark and you're not looking directly at anyone, no one's looking directly at you, that it sort of spills out. Well, I had this revelation. I was thinking about a problem that I had in the office 6 months ago, and I wish I'd done this. I see now that there was a different path I could have taken.
Mm.
And it's interesting how often that happens. You know, that
Right.
where the fire's crackling and you're feeling the warmth and the stars are out and you hear the crickets or maybe the alligators are buzzing by or whatever. And yeah, we've seen one or two of those, right? And all of a sudden it all sort of it just comes
Yeah.
together. And
Right.
so those moments are special. And you know, or it could be sitting under the porch with a little bit of rain with a guitar out, you know.
You're going
But
to bring your guitar.
I will bring my guitar. But that's very much a part of the whole experience, for sure. So
You know,
Vespers is important.
Vespers. The Vespers are quiet. You know, it's
Yeah.
that thing where it's the bookend to the day.
Right.
Because I think normally what happens at other conference events, at the end of the day, the Vespers is very high energy. It's probably an open bar and there's loud
Right.
music and it's very well lit.
Right.
And you're reflecting on the day, but it's a different kind of, it's a noisy, chattery, loud kind
It's
of
networking.
Yeah.
It's almost.
And we don't have alcohol. Like that's one of the things we just decided to do. Let's just remove the complexity. I can't be sure that everybody's going to be an adult and there's a lake with paddle boards, and let's just remove the complexity. Can we go without drink for 1 week? And it's worked out really well. But at ending the day in a place of quiet and thoughtfulness and still great conversations, there's still a lot of laughter. And I was talking to somebody recently. They said they were so excited chatting about something at the roundtable event in the spring that someone came out of the cabin and said, "Could you guys just keep it down? I'm trying to sleep in here." So it's still not always. It still could get a little excited, not loud, but going into a quiet place at the end of the day, as opposed to a loud place.
Yeah, and that takes me back to another theme that we've talked about in years past. We've talked about being married to distraction. That we're constantly in this state of overstimulation. We're only semi-paying attention at any moment, right? Where I'm talking to you, but I'm looking at the side of my phone. Is a text going to come in? Am I going to get a ping? Am I getting a notification on my PC?
Right.
You know,
right.
And so opportunities like this to really put that stuff down and be fully present are few and far between. And when you can allow yourself to let go of distraction and just be, and really be centered and really listen, and really share deeply, it can be profound. And even if it does nothing other than recharge your batteries, it's worth doing just for that alone.
Thanks, Randy. Look, this is wonderful. Starts September 29th through October 4th. So we get together on a Sunday afternoon, give everybody a chance to travel. I should mention there's at least 4 people traveling internationally. They're going to come a day or 2 early.
Oh,
so
wow.
There's no stress about travel. And if someone needs to do that, just, when they register, let me know that you need to come early because you don't want to risk travel delays getting there. So arrive Sunday, offsite Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, leadership discussions, and then Friday, breakfast, hugs, safe travels. And so if, the early bird registration is still active. It ends on Monday, August 19. So you got till this week to register, for a reduced pricing. And then, looking forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah, always looking forward to it. Thank you, Phil. Pleasure.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Cheers.
There we go. That's it.